Deeper the roots, taller the tree. Read and enjoy. Let's read the story of a barber who tells us all about balancing need and greed. A barber lived with his wife in a small house in the city. He was good at his work and had been appointed barber to the king. Once a week he was required to attend on the king, trim his hair and beard and give his head a massage. This was light work and left the barber with plenty of time to think. And what did he think of? He thought of gold. All the time he thought of gold. He dreamt of gold. He wished for gold. He saw courtiers going in and out of the palace, all laden with gold. Why couldn't he have as much gold as they did? It isn't as though the barber was poor. The king was generous and gave him a good salary, enough for a comfortable living. But the barber was never satisfied. One day he told his wife, "We must save hard so we can buy a whole lot of gold. You can then wear a gold necklace and bangles, like the wife of a rich man of the city." So the barber and his wife saved up as much money as they could. When they had saved up enough, they went to the goldsmith and bought a gold necklace and gold bangles for the wife. She now wore them whenever she went out, so everyone could see how rich they were. But the barber was still not satisfied. He wanted still more gold. He was always thinking of ways and means of getting more gold. One day he went for a walk into the forest that lay outside the city. After a while he sat down under a tree to rest. He was thinking how happy he would be if only he had more gold. All at once he heard a voice that seemed to come from up in the tree. "Barber," said the voice, "why do you look so sad? Is anything the matter?" The barber was startled to hear a voice in the middle of the forest. He looked up among the branches of the tree, searching for the owner of the voice, but saw nobody. Perhaps the voice had only been his imagination. But next moment the voice came again. "You cannot see me, barber, but I am here. I live in this tree. I have the power to fulfill the desires of people. Don't be afraid. Tell me if you would like something from me." The barber mustered up courage enough to say, "Oh unknown being, there's only one thing I want. I want gold. Gold. I want all the gold I can get. There's nothing in the world I want except gold." "Would 7 jars of gold be enough?" "7 jars. Oh, I'd be so happy. Even the king doesn't have that much." "Very well, you'll get your gold. Go home. You will find 7 jars of gold waiting for you." The barber couldn't believe his ears. Was he dreaming? No, the voice had been real all right. He was so excited that he ran all the way back home and reached there quite out of breath. He found his wife waiting anxiously at the door. "Thank heavens you are back," she cried. "I don't know what is happening. Come in and see." She dragged him inside and showed him 7 large jars standing on the floor. One moment there was nothing, and next moment these jars were all there. I was too scared to open them, for fear of what they might contain. "Do you know anything about them?" "Don't worry, I'll show you what's inside," he said. Pushing his wife aside, he went to the first jar and raised the lid. His eyes began to shine. The jar was brimming with gold coins. So many, he couldn't believe his eyes. He opened the second jar, and the third. Like the first, he found jar after jar full of gold coins. But when he opened the 7th jar, his face fell with disappointment. He clutched at his hair and started yelling, "I've been cheated. He's cheated me. He distinctly told me 7. And these are only 6. The 7th is only half full. Oh, what cheats some people are." His wife just couldn't understand what he meant. When he had calmed down a little, she asked him what had happened. "There was someone up in a tree in the forest who promised to give me 7 jars of gold. I couldn't see him, but only heard his voice. And just see what he has done. Can you believe it? How stingy some people can get. But we still have so much." His wife tried to console him. "Wait, I'll count everything and tell you how much we have." "Oh no, I couldn't bear it," the barber said. "We must have 7 jars full of gold. We must fill up the 7th before counting what we have. We must save every single pie that we can so as to fill that jar." The barber and his wife fell to saving every single cowrie that they could, even to the extent of denying themselves proper food and clothes. Everything that they saved was converted into gold coins and put into the 7th jar. They sold the wife's ornaments, and the gold coins thus received also went into the jar. But still the 7th jar could not be filled. The barber and his wife began to eat even less. They became thinner and thinner, and their clothes hung loose around them. In spite of their wealth, they both looked miserable. The king noticed it, and one day he asked the barber, "What is the matter with you? You look so sad, and so thin. Indeed, you're growing thinner by the day. Are you ill?" "No, Your Majesty, I'm not ill. I'm worried about money, that's why you see me like this." "Is that so? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I don't like to see you looking so sad." And the king told his treasurer to double the money that the barber was paid every month. But even this did not help. The barber and his wife redoubled their efforts to save more. They both reduced their food even further. Everything they could save went into the jar in the shape of gold coins, but still the jar would not be filled. One day, after the barber had attended to the king, the latter asked him to take a seat. The barber sat down on the floor before the king. "What happened?" asked the king. "You used to be so cheerful and full of life. I don't like to see you in such a sorry state. Tell me, you haven't by any chance received the 7 jars, have you?" The barber was astonished to hear this. But Your Majesty, how did you guess?" he asked. "I too was once given the 7 jars, the king replied. "I heard a voice up in a tree offering them to me. I accepted the jars. But when I opened them, I found the last one half empty. I suspected it was some kind of a trick, so I went back to the forest and asked the spirit in the tree whether I could spend the gold that was in the jars." "And what did he tell you?" the barber asked eagerly. "There was no answer, so I returned home and thought over it. I could make out that the half-empty jar stood for greed. However much one may get, the jar of greed can never be filled. That was a trap for me, to make me desire more and more gold. Since the jar can never be filled, my desire for gold would never be satisfied." The barber was all attention. "And what did you do then?" he asked. "Once I realized that all this was meant to make me a slave of greed, it became very simple. I don't want any of your gold. Take your jars back." And sure enough, when I reached back home, the jars were gone. The barber was thinking hard. "I now see the truth of what you have said, Your Majesty. This craving for more and more gold has ruined me. But what can I do about it now?" "It is still not too late," the king told him. "Give those jars back before a bigger misfortune befalls you. As it is, you have been reduced to a skeleton by those jars." The barber was now really scared. He hurried to the forest and asked the spirit in the tree to take back the 7 jars of gold. Although the barber and his wife lost their wealth, but they regained their health and cheerfulness gradually. Thomas Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison, a most unusual boy, never really bothered much with any childish toy. His teacher thought he couldn't learn and sent him home from school, but Tommy's mother knew for sure he wasn't any fool. He worked as newsboy on a train. He learned to telegraph. The way he concentrated made some people laugh. Thomas Alva Edison had inventions by the score. In his laboratory, he kept inventing more. The phonograph, electric light with fuses, sockets, too, a super storage battery, and movies were a few. If not for Mr. Edison, how dull our lives would be. We might not have the radio, the X-ray, or TV.